So in this particular video, I just want to speak on the spiritual aspects of the move that happened for me and my family. But as a disclaimer, I just wanted to start out by saying that the Most High is going to communicate in various ways. So each situation is going to be different, and the Most High is going to speak to you in His way. So not every situation for each person is going to line up the same as far as how the Most High is going to reveal Himself to you. So it could be through, you could hear His voice if He wants to. He'll show you signs when you're paying close attention. He will use others to reveal a message to you. And He will also use words and a series of events to reveal Himself to you. So, just keep that in mind, that it might not, this is my experience, so your experience is going to be different. I just wanted to put that out there first. And I think that's important because, the Most High is He's going to give you what you need, and how He does that is on an individual basis. So with that being said, let's get into it, and hopefully this isn't too long. But so roughly 4 years ago, and again, this kind of brushes in on the part one of my testimony, but roughly 4 years ago, that would make it around 2019, 2020, and the Most High was dealing with me in several ways. A lot was happening in my life. A lot was happening in my situation. So we were living in a rancher at the time. It was a 1952 rancher, I believe. So it was pretty old. It needed a lot of work. At the time I had my daughter, who was, she was probably, going on 5. And I had my new twin boys. And, I wasn't getting much sleep. I touched on that. And we were quickly running out of space. And during this time is when I was awakened to the truth as far as who I am, biblically. And I was dealing with that, but not really understanding the totality of, what that meant. So you have to understand that there's a physical plane in which we exist in, but there's also a spiritual plane. And when you understand the scripture as far as we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but principalities and rulers in high places, it doesn't get realer and truer than that scripture there, because at the time, and it took me a while, I didn't really understand that there was a spiritual war happening around me, right? And just to give you an example, this is probably something that you want to look into on the side, but there's a such thing called being targeted, or a targeted individual, right? And at the time, I didn't understand that. I didn't know anything about it, but I sought that out because of things that were happening around me that I could not explain. I couldn't explain it. So I was trying to make sense of what was going on around me, because I was starting to see individuals doing things that didn't make a whole lot of sense. As far as when I left, but by the time I left my home, going to work, and then coming back home, I was experiencing a lot of different happenings on my way to and from. I couldn't make sense of it. So to make a long story short, what was going on is that the moment that I understood who I was biblically and spiritually, when I was reading the scripture, when I was reading Exodus, like I mentioned, and the Most High was like, these are your ancestors, these are your people, this is who you are, right? The moment that I understood that, the moment that fear of understanding that it was all real and that the Most High was putting on my spirit the weight of not only accepting it, but acknowledging that fact. I had to come to terms with it. I had to come to grips with it. But what I didn't know was that in the spiritual realm, demons and other spirits knew that was going to happen and knew that was going to take place, right? Because, just to give you an example, I was having a lot of trouble sleeping after this. A lot was happening. I wasn't sleeping very well, but I started noticing there were things happening. So I lived in a rancher, and it was an open attic. And setting aside the tinnitus, like the ringing that was happening in my ears, but I was noticing there was like movement and walking in the attic above me, and I couldn't make sense of what was going on. And even, my wife was starting to take note of it as well. And I'm the more observant person. I'm the one who kind of like picks up on those type of things. But even she was hearing walking and movement at night above us. And this was before sleep, And there was also some situations and sometimes circumstances where through our Ring camera on our front door, it was actually picking up, strange voices, strange type of like noises. I was starting to hear that as well when I was, I just happened to be, looking at the footage from something that was going on. I was hearing, oddities in the background. And, you can chalk that up as that, well, maybe we were just picking up some, random background noise, and that could be the case, but I was taking note of certain things that were going on, right? So what I'm trying to get at is that through the moment that I was awakening to the truth, the spiritual realm was aware of it as well, and was trying to keep me locked into a worldly view, and it was throwing a whole lot of different scenarios at me that I wasn't quite aware of, but I was really seeking guidance from the Most High at this particular time. One thing that I want to mention is that I also knew that I could no longer stay where I was staying. There was a feeling over me that I had to move. I didn't like the state I was living in anyway, based upon how I was seeing things go at that time. Probably, a decade prior to, 2020 or 2019, I was starting to get this sense that I needed to move. I didn't really like the spiritual aspects and the laws, the changing of, the laws in the state, and a lot of things were happening that I didn't like, so I didn't want to be there. So that was always on my mind. But being in this home, it was it was a starter home, but I knew that it wasn't going to work. We had to go, we had to leave, and the more things started to happen while we were living there, the more things that I couldn't explain, the more feeling I had that we needed to go, right? So the Most High started putting on my spirit, like, hey, I need you to get yourself together. Like, I needed to get your finances together. I need you need to stop doing certain things. I need you to start focusing in on what do you need to do. Like, that was what I kept getting. And, there were things happening because, again, I wasn't sleeping. Had 3 young children at the time. A lot was going on. Like, the stress was very, very high. But throughout this time, I was still trying to seek the Most High and still try to use Him to navigate me through Yehoshua, how and what moves I needed to do. And the more things got worse, the more things went wrong, the more I leaned on Yehoshua. Like, because of the experience that I mentioned in part 1, I knew that there are things that I needed to pay very, very close attention to receive that message, to receive understanding. And because I remembered that, I was able to use the circumstances, and I was able to use what was happening to make the choices that I needed to make for myself and my family. So getting my things together, getting things lined up, it was around the beginning of the year that we made the choice, like, okay, let's do it. Let's list our home. I'll finish the projects that we need to finish to get this house ready to go. So, I focused on that. I got things fixed on the house as best I could, and got ready to stage it. So I was working on all these things, and then we met with a realtor, and we started the process. We went several places to look for some homes in that state initially, but I didn't like anything. I just didn't have a good feeling about it. And then, one time, my wife noticed that there was a new community being built in a nearby state, which was still in range of my work, so it was still feasible. And the interesting about it actually happened around the same time as now, so very, very close to my birthday. And matter of fact, I think we made the visit to this community like a day or 2 after my birthday. So it's interesting that I'm doing this video and we're coming up on that time again as well. So we visited this community. We met with the builders, and I don't know why, but in that moment, I agreed to, I was like, you know what? I don't really have a problem with this situation, because there were new homes being built. It was a community that my wife was interested in. We lived in a rural area before, which wasn't working for our young kids. So I was like, all right, let's go, let's do this. Let's go ahead and try to get in on this community. I trusted the Most High, at this time completely. I was like, you know what? The Most High is going to handle whether or not we end up here. And I gave it over that moment. And I remember thinking, all my faith is in Him, because I knew He wanted me to move out of that state. And I'm going to tell you how I knew that as well in just a bit. I'm getting there. So we went through the process, and we were approved for it, and it was a good moment, a good day, because I didn't go in there knowing that I was going to do that, but I went in there also knowing that I was going to trust the Most High. So we were approved for it, and the only stipulation was that we had to, our current home had to be listed, and it had to be not only listed, but it had to be under contract. That was part of the deal, So we sped up the process as far as our home being on the market, and again, strange things started happening spiritually. I remember there was one moment where our realtor came to our house, and we walked outside, and we were talking about things and planning some things, and then all of a sudden a vehicle just sped up to the right at the end of our driveway, and the individual just sat in the car looking straight ahead. And I had already been experiencing these things for a while. Like, it had been going on for, the better part of half a year. So when I saw this happen, I'm thinking, here we go again, right? I'm thinking, let me fix this. I'm thinking, here we go again. Why is this vehicle stopped like this right in front of my driveway at this moment? And then I noticed that the realtor took note of it as well, of how peculiar this was. And he turned and looked at the vehicle as well, right? So, and my feeling is that, spiritually speaking, there are just things happening because the spirits in this area did not want me to leave. They didn't want me to leave this area, and you know what monitoring spirits are. So they were, to me, these spirits were gathering information about what was going on, how I was leaving, and what, the whole interaction was being monitored. And I can go into, there's so many stories about, monitoring spirits that were very hounding this situation. There was a situation where we had a an open house. We had an open house, and we had so many people come see our home. It was great. We were so happy that people were interested in our home. And our realtor called one day and said, hey, we got a call that someone was freaked out about, there is, in our basement, right, whoever the prior owners were, created a storage room in the basement. And in this storage room that they built, they bricked the area, and it had like this little makeshift door that you entered, and there was a cot in there. Like, it was odd, but they were, for whatever reason, I don't know why, but the prior owners built this storage room with a cot in there, and whoever came to this open house saw this room and thought it was odd, right? And they contacted the authorities about it, right? And this is what our realtor was telling me. My wife was obviously disturbed about it, because we're thinking like, man, is this gonna prevent us from selling this home? Because we had to get this house sold and under contract in order to move, right? So the realtor was like, yeah, this is very strange. Like, it is odd. I don't think it's gonna be a big deal, but check this, like, the authorities not only were contacted, but they actually looked into me, is what I was told. They visited my page and was checking me out and all this other stuff. And again, because I was not only waking up to what was actually going on around me, but understanding scripturally that there's awakening happening in this moment. So we had all these monitoring spirits and all these things converging on me and my situation is what I was taking note of. So I trusted Yehoshua. I trusted myself. I was like, hey, if this is meant to happen, if this is gonna go, they're gonna get this done. They're gonna get this deal done. I was telling, don't worry about it. Tell my wife not to worry about it. It'll work out. I'm not concerned about it. But it was very, very strange, but it was eye-opening for me. So we got all that done. Again, we got through that, and we were able to sell the house. Someone purchased our house, and we could move forward with our move. And leading up to that, I will never forget how there were some very, very strong thunderstorms that took place right before we got ready to move out. And I had never in my life heard thunder that actually sounded like a a voice, like powerful thunder, cracking thunder that to me sounded like there was words on it. I don't know if that was the case, but that's just how I was interpreting this thunder right before we left the state. But again, I was very trying to think of the word I'm looking for, but I was very alert. I was trying to be as observant as I could because of so many things that were transpiring around me that I had to make sure that everything was safe, on track, and accounted for. So fast forwarding, so we got the move. We started to leave the state, and our realtor at our new community told us that, okay, we have the house for you. This is the house number that you're gonna live in, blah blah blah. So we're like, all right, cool, great. And then like maybe a week later or something like that, we no longer had this particular lot. The lot it was given to someone else. So we're thinking, man, like, what's going on? You told us we was gonna get this particular lot, but now we don't have it. So what are we gonna do? Our house is already on the contract. It's being it's sold, and there's a move out date scheduled. And again, it was a stressful situation, but again, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna stress over this. I'm giving this over. All right, if this is gonna go how it's gonna go, the Most High is working. That's what I kept telling myself. So we didn't have a lot anymore, so we had to make arrangements to stay at an extended stay while our house was being sold, and we had to do that whole move out at our current home. And then finally, several weeks passed, and then staying on top of both realtors, making sure they were aware of the situation, we finally got the call that we do have a lot. This is going to be your home, so then we could move forward with making the final arrangements. So I didn't know the address, I just knew the lot number. The community was being built, so there was no address at this particular time, right? We just had a new lot number that was different from the original that we had. So we go ahead and we moved to the new state. I started again still experiencing the same spiritual happenings as we were transitioning from state to state, but it started to decrease, right? I started taking notice that there wasn't as much activity as there was before. It's starting to lessen, so I was taking note of that as well. And I'm gonna end this with some scriptures as to why. But so a lot of things went on during that move, but everything ended up working out, and we moved into our new home. And the moment we moved into our home, there was another thunderstorm. That, I don't know if it was that night or the day before. It's probably the next day. I was walking around, and then I had the same experience of thunder that I had in the prior state right before I moved. The same loud, very, very loud, very cracking, that sounded like there was a voice carrying over it, right? Again, I'll never forget it. But to get to the point, because I'm kind of rambling, one of the things that I learned years and years ago is that of the importance of etymology, where words have come from throughout the years. When you study words, the words today have a different connotation, a different meaning than it did long ago. The further you go back, the more precise of a meaning you're going to find, is one thing that I learned. And so there's a time where I was sitting there and I was just contemplating everything I had been through leading up to the move, right? And how grateful I was to be in the situation that I was. And I was thinking about, for some reason, I had the thought about our address, right? Because I remember, man, we were supposed to have this one lot, right? But then I ended up at this new lot that was completely different. So I had the thought, like, I wonder what the meaning of my address is, right? So I started looking at my new address, and I started looking at the etymology of the words, and come to find out, if you break down the numbers and you break down the words, you can interpret, at least for me, in my case, I was able to gather or interpret a message out of our current address. And basically, in general words, more or less, is that my house is a refuge from what's to come, under the protection of Yahushua, through the Most High, more or less. Like, if you take each word and you break down the etymology, if you know something that sits high up, like a mountain, you can interpret that in scripture to something. If you take other parts of it, you can also interpret that as far as the stick or the staff and the rod of the Most High is how you can interpret the words. And the numbers are associated with Yahushua. And after doing that work, I confirmed that, yeah, the Most High had every bit of control over where we were supposed to be. And the timing, all of it is how he intended to go. And providing that reassurance, because again, he knows the beginning from the end, and he knew that I would do the work to uncover that last bit of truth to him, his hand guiding me out of that state. So there's scripture that says that if you are persecuted or harassed in another state, you're supposed to flee to the next. So if powers and principalities are seeking after you in one place and they're targeting you in one area, per the scriptures, I'll throw the scripture up, but you're told that you should flee to the next state to get away from that. And after we moved, probably like a month after, right behind my now old home, a body was found. So, of someone who was actually kidnapped. It's very complicated, but very tragic as well. But there's a body found on a road right behind my old house, right? From an individual that was kidnapped from somewhere where I used to work. So the area that I worked, which was in another state, their body was found right behind my old home. So what that tells me, if you understand spiritual components, is that because I vacated that area, right? Because I left that area, because I'm protected by the Most High, because Yahushua is with me, that area has an edge, a hedge of protection, excuse me. You're given a hedge. And the moment that I left that area, I took my family out of that area, that hedge is no longer there. And I can prove this several times throughout my life that after vacating in an area, something bad has happened. And I can give you a couple examples of that. One time where I used to work at a bank as a teller for years. Nothing ever happened at this bank. Nothing at all. The moment I left that bank, the moment I moved to another job, within a few weeks or a month, it got hit with a robbery. Like, I kid you not. I kid you not. So what I'm saying is that when I saw this news report that there was a body found right behind my old house, I knew, and again, that's more confirmation that the Most High will put a hedge around his people. He will protect his people. He will. And it's up to you. What's going on with this phone? And it's up to you to basically seek out his word, seek out his understanding, seek out his messaging to you to help you navigate. Once you put all your trust, once you put all your faith to Yahushua, the Most High is going to gather you up with outstretched arms. And he's going to make sure that you're in the particular place you need to be. So I know I'm probably leaving out, a lot of stuff. Some of it is intentional because some of it is personal. Some of it puts things in a spot where you can't really have someone understand because it's from my perspective. But I'm just gonna say, through the words I'm trying to offer you, just know that when there are things going on around you that you can't explain, you should pay more attention. Instead of being fearful, instead of being afraid, I would urge you to heighten your awareness. Pay attention to every detail. If there's something that puts a name on something, use etymology. See if there's a message there. If there's something where there are people who are doing things around you can't quite make sense of it, pay close attention to it. Pray. Pray about it. Seek the Most High. Ask him for guidance about it, But yeah, that's my story. That's how, spiritually speaking, I was made aware of the Most High's hand working in my life to get me to where I needed to be. And I trusted him the entire time. So I hope that makes sense. I know I rambled a bit. If you have questions, about it, let me know. And yeah, at the end of the day, put everything in the Most High's hands through Yahushua. Lean on Yahushua for the understanding, and they will reveal themselves in your lives, and they will make sure that you're kept safe. So with that being said, peace and take care. Later.